This is Doug Scheiding, the Rogue Cookers, Texas embedded correspondent. You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show.
Start the game! Let's go!
We'll do it live. Okay. Well, do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
So to get that perfect barbecue, you use wood. Are you sure it's safe? Whatever. We put the lighter fluid on, strike the match, and... Oh! Should we call the fire department? That might be a good idea.
All right, good evening, and welcome to the really big Barbecue Central Show. This is the show where we talk about all things that are important to the world of barbecue and grilling. The show originating from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame city, Bomb City, USA, Cleveland, Ohio, the barbecue capital of the North Coast. I am your program host, Greg Rempe. Happy to have you aboard here on your Tuesday evening's live fire, fun, and frivolity show. If you'd like to get in contact with the show this evening, or you would like to follow the show during off-show hours, here's how you do all that.
You can get in touch with the show by sending an email to Greg at bbqcentralshow.com. Follow us on all the social media channels at BBQ Central Show. And be sure to subscribe to the show podcast feed on your favorite podcast platform.
Anything else you want to find out about the show can be found at the main website, thebbqcentralshow.com. And here's what's happening in case you get the newsletter coming up in about 12 minutes from now, the second Tuesday of a month. And in the first spot, the lead spot, 14 minutes past that first hour of the second Tuesday of every month, it means we can be expecting a visit from our pal Meathead from AmazingRibs.com. We have a number of things to talk about. In his opinion, the Barbecue Central Show may or may not have an identity crisis or a name crisis. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk about grill brushes. We'll talk about a number of other topics during our course this evening. And then, after Meathead, 35 past the first hour, we'll be joined by also second Tuesday of the month regular guest here in the second hour, Robert Moss, robertfmoss.com. Tonight starts what will be for the balance of the year, so 11-month jaunt on specific topics that Robert and I have decided we would like to dig in on. I'd sent him a bunch of different topics of things that I would like to talk about, discuss, or dig deeper in beginning of the year or as the year was turning, and I sent him the list, and he quickly said, well, this is something that we could easily cover during segments here over the course of the rest of the year. So I don't want to say we have the rest of the year mapped out with Robert Moss already. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of other things that pop up that we can get his thoughts on outside of what we are planning for the rest of the year. But tonight we start, and we're going to be talking about the lesser known cuts in the history of barbecue. So if you have ever wondered, outside of ribs and pork shoulder, whole hog, brisket, what have been some of the other standards in barbecue history? We'll learn about it all tonight during the Robert Moss segment, and that'll bring a close to the first hour. Then we'll move to the second hour. First timer to the show. She's the organizer of Smoke Slam, which is going head-to-head against Memphis in May, here in May, same weekend, same days. You know well about it because we talk about it here on the show quite often because it's just giving new information week after week. So we will be joined by first-timer to the show and another first-time guest here. Seems like every week over the course of the brand new year, we've had at least one new guest to show. Melzie Wilson will be joining us. She's in Atlanta tonight, where she'll be joining us from. And we'll talk about her time in barbecue, how she got into it, how she got into organizing. She was well connected with Memphis in May for probably every year up until this year, where when Kerry Bringle broke off and joined the steering committee on this new Smoke Slam, Melzie was soon tapped to take over organizational duties, which she's also doing now. So we'll talk about maybe where the fade of feelings happened during Memphis in May over the course of the last handful of years, why she might have grew a little bit disinterested, or perhaps a better question might even be why an upstart competition that seems to be so dead set against going against one of the stalwarts, one of the majors every year, why she would want to make that switch. So Melzie Wilson, 14 past, and if needed, 35 past the second hour. And that's how your show's here setting up this evening. Meathead Robert Moss in your usual first hour. Melzie Wilson, first-time guest, second hour. Don't forget you can follow me socially, Instagram, X, TikTok, Snapchat. We say good evening to those of you watching tonight through one of our video streaming platform partners. You can go to facebook.com/BBQ Central Show. Actually, I think that's probably wrong tonight because something happened in the streaming service, but sure, that'll get worked out by next week. You can go to twitter.com/BBQ Central Show, where I know it is happening. And, of course, you can go to the most popular way to watch the show, youtube.com/@BBQ Central Show. And we have a YouTube poll question of the week that we're asking everybody. YouTubers and guests alike will be asked, will you watch the UFL this spring since the NFL season is now officially over? 64% of you are saying no. I am firmly with the 64%. When you get to my advanced age, you come to realize a few things. One being probably the most important. Time is fleeting, right? I mean, today, February 13th, what do we have? As I mentioned it last week, the middle daughter, Madison Rempe, turns 21 today. Happy birthday to Maddie, of course. Probably out ripping it up in Kenton, Ohio right now. Who knows what's going on? Shots, beers, octobongs, ice luges. I don't know what happens in colleges these days, but I remember kind of what it was like for my 21st birthday. So we wish her safety and responsibility first and a good time second. But all to make the point that time is fleeting. I can't waste my time anymore watching nonsense. And the UFL, while it may be a platform for those that have been overlooked in the draft, those who have dropped out of the NFL and feel they deserve another shot, they're good enough to make a UFL roster in hopes that they rekindle a spark or they get a look from a scout or a coach on the NFL sideline to bump them back up to the big leagues again. Great. Good for you. Try your hardest. I'm not going to be party to it because I'm not going to watch substandard football when the NFL provides the elite of the elite. That's why I don't watch WNBA basketball. I watch NBA basketball. That's why, because I'm not a sexist, I watch college softball because it's better than the professional women's version. Same thing with women's college volleyball. I watch it over men's volleyball. Men's indoor volleyball, very tough to watch. Impressive for about 5 minutes, and that's it. So I'm here to tell you, time's fleeting. If you're 31% of the folks that say they're going to watch UFL, good. Good for you. You're a true football fan. You're watching no matter what, and there's plenty of you out there. But my time is too valuable to watch on second-rate football. It'd be watching the Canadian Football League or some other nonsense that they're trotting out here now, trying to latch onto and ride the coattails of the NFL. Why not? So we'll check the stats over the course of the rest of the show here. Anxious to get Meathead's opinion. Who knows? Maybe Meathead won't give me his opinion or an answer like he didn't last week or last month. We'll see. Maybe he's being insufferable again. We'll see here shortly. We're going to start here tonight. I'm very excited to announce this, by the way. It's just happening.
Barbecue Central Show exclusive news update.
Greg Rempe reporting from the breaking news desk here in Cleveland, Ohio, the city that breaks the most live fire breaking news across the country. Nay, the globe. In what was the longest ongoing lawsuit ever in the history of live fire lawsuits. You know it, Traeger versus Green Mountain Grills, and what feels like it's been dating back some 75 years at this point. Of course, I'm just kidding, but it's been years. As of February 8th, 2024, this case has been 100% officially closed, and an agreement has been reached in amicable fashion by the two sides. Thank goodness. There will be no further litigation on this specific matter going forward between these two companies. I talked to top men in the industry. I worked my sources, and while I cannot get settlement detail, I can tell you that you don't need to ask about it anymore. You're not going to hear hide nor hair of this anymore, and there will be no suing by either side going forward anymore. Great news to all the other pellet manufacturers out there in the world that are making cookers, because Green Mountain Grills took one right to the balls for all of you. I'm going to make a request that all the other pellet grill manufacturers send $10,000 or $50,000 to Green Mountain Grill as a service of thank you to what they did to everybody else. Allowed you to have time to make your workaround so Traeger wouldn't go sue you. And everybody owes Green Mountain Grills a debt of gratitude as far as I'm concerned. By the way, Green Mountain Grills at the HPB Expo, which I am not at this year. Are you tired of settling for mediocre grilling experiences? Yes. It's time to step your game up and bring the ultimate flavor and cooker to the backyard barbecues. Pits and Spits charcoal grills, offering the highest quality live fire cooking experience you can get in the market today. Using either wood or charcoal, their solid fuel grills produce those classic flavors you're looking for when you have the time to fire up the grill, cook for family and friends. With a large adjustable fuel tray, you can raise and lower the fire to control and fine-tune the heat. Their take on the very popular Santa Maria-style grill that's also out there. Check them out online, pitsandspits.com/BBQ Central. That's pitsandspits.com/BBQ Central. And as you're checking out with that new charcoal grill that you have, you want to save $150 on that? You know you do. Enter promo code Charcoal Central, all one word, at checkout, Charcoal Central, and you can save $150 off any charcoal grill. Great. If you follow me on Instagram, I reposted one of those Pits and Spits charcoal grills on my story. You tell me it's not the most sexy charcoal grill currently available on the market. It is a knockout. pitsandspits.com/BBQ Central. And don't forget, Pits and Spits, the double T on the Pits and the Spits. We're back with Meathead right after this. Stick around. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the BBQ Central Show. Broadcasting live from the BBQ Central Show studios in Cleveland, Ohio. You're listening to the BBQ Central Show. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
Welcome back. This portion of the show being brought to you by CookinPellets.com, your number one source for quality wood pellets for all your pellet-driven cookers. You visit CookinPellets.com and review everything they have for sale to purchase. And then when you're ready to buy, sounds counterproductive, go to Amazon.com or Walmart.com or Lowe's.com. Same great product. Hugely wonderful shipping rates, and we all love that. Good folks over at CookinPellets.com, Chris Becker and the gang. My first guest tonight needs no introduction, but I'll try anyway. He's created the most heavily trafficked barbecue and grilling website on the face of the earth, a best-selling author, a barbecue Hall of Famer, a Barbecue Central Show's guest Hall of Famer. Meathead is here. Meathead, before we get going here this evening, we have a YouTube poll question of the week that we're asking everybody, and we're wondering if we're getting Meathead tonight or insufferable Meathead tonight. But the question is this: will you watch the UFL this spring since the NFL is now over, yes or no? Meathead, I have no sound on you. Are you muted? Meathead. 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 Are you muted? I no hear you, Meathead. Hello? Hello? No, can't hear. Can't hit me. Can't hear Meathead. What's going on here? Got this whole build up. How about now? All right. Let me make my note right here for all the guys and gals who are suffering through the live. How about now, Meathead?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Wonderful. All right, so
Good.
we had that big build-up, and I was wondering if you were watching UFL this spring since the NFL season is over, yes or no?
You said you didn't want to watch second-rate football, but you watched the Browns and I watched the Bears. We already watched second-rate football.
The Browns were good this year, Meathead. You got me confused. It's been the other 21 years that we have had to suffer through NFL seasons. So,
well, we're both football fans,
yeah,
and I love to watch football, but I probably won't watch
all right.
the minor leagues.
75% of us are in agreement. We're not going to be watching the minor league football as it generates this spring under whatever umbrella it's going to be. Meathead, we were going back and forth. You have a alleged book that's going to be coming out here next year, and we were talking about how the show should be recognized in the book. Now, before we get after it, let me just say, I am humbled to be even mentioned and or included in the book. Of course, thank you. But in talking about it, you said, well, you say it's not a podcast. I say call it the Barbecue Central Show. You say I have an identity issue potentially or an identity problem. Let's talk it out with the Centralites and see who's right and who's not.
Well, I just didn't. I don't have an opinion. I don't know what to call. I mean, I quote you in the book, Greg Rempe, host of the Barbecue Central Show, blank. And now, it's not a podcast because I think podcasts are typically just voice only, sound only, but we have video. There's this weird vlog term out there, and I don't think anybody knows what a vlog is. And you said just call it a show. But, I mean, a show could be on Broadway. A show could be a high school gym. So I just didn't know how to describe you. And you said, well, it sounds like I got an identity crisis. Okay.
Here's what I think. So podcasting, like many things anymore, has finally evolved to where at least a certain percentage, maybe let's say the majority of folks, if you mention the term podcast to them, everyday ham and eggers would have an idea what you were talking about. Or it's a term that they've heard. 10 years ago, they still hadn't heard about it. And I was well into my 6th or 7th year at that point of doing podcast, 8 overall. Now I think we're to the point where podcast is something that is a buzzword that people know. But over the time, a podcast originally was audio only and recorded. And that was how the show started. But over time, platforms and audiences wanted more. They wanted to see a camera. They want video. So now a podcast can also include a show that has video like we have here that is recorded. The reason my show becomes quickly into a gray area because it continues to have the podcast feed, which has 2,200 different posts in it over the course of time that it's been out for. It also has a live component, which many shows don't have, which is why I dropped that Barbecue Central radio show, because it was never on radio anyway. So it does become a gray area for me specifically, and anybody else that kind of does what I do with a live show, but you're also recording, and then you also release into the podcast feed for people to consume at their leisure like most people do. Very small percentage of folks will watch the show as it's happening live, and that's why I love my live audience the most, because they're carving time out of a Tuesday night to check us out live. And that's why I think, in this instance, Barbecue Central Show is exactly what it is. Is it a podcast? Yes, but not only a podcast. Is it a show? But not only a show, there's also a podcast, and it's got video componentry to it as well. So show is something that describes it best, because there isn't a great descriptor otherwise, because then we're pigeonholing it if we're calling it just a podcast or something other than that with a descriptor. So Barbecue Central Show it is.
Let's coin a term. We'll call it a Rempy.
The Barbecue Central Show Rempy.
Yes, it's a Rempy.
All right.
And anybody else who does this is doing a Rempy.
That's right. And then we have to immediately trademark. I got to call my lady to make sure that we legalize that, and that way I can collect money off of that as well. All right, so now that we got that covered, I got to ask you before we talk about Grill Brush. Are you watching the guy eating raw chicken on the Instagrams?
Yeah, I haven't watched him in a while, but he's going to get sick eventually. I mean, Consumer Reports a few years ago went out and bought 300 chicken breasts and tested them, and 90% of them contained pathogenic bacteria. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to get sick from every one of those.
Yep.
It has a lot to do with your individual immunity system and the load. This is what microbiologists call load. How many bacteria are in there? If there's one or two little bacteria in there, chances are you're not going to notice. You're not going to get sick. But if there's a lot of them in there, you can. Now, this Consumer Reports research was 2014. The systems have gotten better, so there's less pathogenic contamination, but it's out there, and it's just silly. And among other things, do you want to eat raw chicken? I mean, it's just slimy, greasy, and his videos are just really unattractive. I mean, they're barf worthy.
Let me get your potential expert opinion on this. Can you put yourself in a position where he's on day 26 and he's just shy of 400,000 followers on Instagram, eating raw chicken every day until he gets a tummy ache? As I do more research on this guy, he's eaten raw meat for lengths at a time, raw eggs for lengths at a time, a lot of uncooked stuff, fish, blah, blah, blah. Can you train, or can you eat so much raw chicken to the point where you make yourself immune?
Yeah. The question is what level of immunity, and I don't think science knows. But there's a high likelihood that he has developed a certain degree of immunity to, raw chicken is Campylobacter and Salmonella, the common bugs that are in them. There's E. coli and other things, but those are the two. It's possible that his system has created antibodies or immunity, if you will, so that it doesn't affect him as much. And so he might make it. I wouldn't advise anybody else out there. I mean, first of all, why? It just doesn't, it's not appetizing.
No one should be taking this as the government is hoodwinking us. You can eat raw chicken regularly and it's safe and you should do it without fear. I feel like maybe that's what he's posturing.
I don't know if that's what his point is. Look, so many people distrust our government. It has given us plenty of reason to distrust it, but it's also given us plenty of reason to trust it. Microbiologists, scientists, I think in general, they try very hard to give us useful data. And, Here, bottom line, anything raw has a higher risk than anything cooked. Cooking is, by the way, I think but not everybody out there who's listening. I married a PhD microbiologist who was a food safety expert and worked for FDA for many years, which is where I get my minuscule expertise in the topic, because I talked to her and I learned from her and I've seen her research. And I think that she and others call it the kill step. Cooking is the kill step. Cooking kills bacteria. So, if you read the Center for Disease Control puts out something called the morbidity report. If you look at this thing, the vast majority of foodborne illnesses come from raw vegetables. I mean, you've heard these recalls on lettuce and spinach, and it is generally believed that raw sprouts are the most dangerous food in the grocery store.
Yeah.
Because the way you grow sprouts is you take these seeds, which are harvested from the field where birds and bunnies and pigs and others are rustling around. You harvest the seeds, you put them in a burlap bag, you ship them from Asia maybe or wherever to the United States. They sit in a warehouse. Then you soak them in warm water. Water. That's what makes them sprout. Warm water is exactly the same conditions that bacteria sprout in. So you're growing both. And so some of the worst cases of foodborne illness, there was one in Germany, I think 30 some people were killed from sprouts. Go tell your health food fans that sprouts are dangerous.
Let's talk about grill brushes. Those can be dangerous. Every 4th of July, every Labor Day, you see the stories come out talking about so-and-so went to the emergency room because they have a grill brush bristle stuck in their throat or punctured their lung or whatever the hell. You have a grill brush you might have fallen in love with. Yeah.
Well, let's just back up in case people are not up to speed on this. There is this, it's a constant, it happens every year. You read about it. Wire bristle brushes, often the bristles come off and they land on your grill grate, and your grill grate may be dirty, you don't see it, and then it gets on a burger or a steak and somebody eats it and it lodges in their throat or their stomach, and it can be really bad. And not every doctor recognizes it. There was a case that the New York Times wrote about recently where they did, took months before they finally figured out what it was. It's dangerous. My experience with them is these grill brushes that are wrapped in metal. There's like a metal braid. They're pretty good. They don't come out that I have every grill brush known to man. I don't think they come out it's the ones that are in wood. The ones that are in metal and plastic seem to be anchored pretty solidly. But regardless, if you're using a bristle brush, you should, after you're done scraping and wiping, look at the grill carefully to make sure that there's no bristles left, or possibly just wipe it with a paper towel. Some people use an onion. But I recently purchased something called Grill Rescue, which is a grill cleaning tool, and it is really cool. It really works. I really like it a lot, and I'd like to recommend it. It's a big plastic handle, and it's got a metal scraper on the end, so you can scrape. Greg's showing pictures. But it's got this pad inside surrounded by, that's not the pad. That's something else. That's it's got this, it's like a foam pad, but it's wrapped in a really heavy-duty cloth. It's like the stuff they make fire hoses out of. And it just doesn't catch on fire. It doesn't burn. What you do is you dunk it in water. And I have one of those little loaf pans. It's a aluminum disposable loaf pan that holds about 2 cups of water. And I fill it up with water, and I just keep it by the grill, and I dunk this thing in the water for 30 seconds. It soaks up water, and you run it over your grill grates. And if they're hot, and that you should heat them up, it steams. And it's really effective at removing grease. Now, it only gets the top side, so you either have to flip it over Or there's another gadget that I like called Chargon. It's sort of a U shape, and Chargon scrapes both the top and the bottom. And you don't want grease on your food. You don't want grease from the top of the grill, grate, or the underside of the grill grate. Burning grease, smoking grease. A lot of people, they get their gas grill cranked up, and they see all that smoke coming out, and oh boy, I'm a smoking now. That's grease. You don't want that. You want your smoke from wood. So this grill rescue pad really is effective. It almost instantly turns black, but you can wash it out. You can put it in a bucket and wash it out. You can buy replacement pads, and I just bought 2 today. They're like $16 a piece, so they're not cheap. I'm very impressed with it. They really do. I have stainless steel grates on my gas grill, and it gets them pretty darn clean.
They can work on any grill. So if I have grill grates, the product, then it would work just as good, you think?
They recently introduced a brush that has like fingers. I just saw it for the first time today. And the fingers, it's designed, there it is, you got it. It's designed for grill grate. And there you go. It goes into the valleys and over the river and through the woods. And I haven't tried it yet. I just ordered one, but it looks like it might work. I think it's very clever.
$56 for a grill brush seems like a lot, but maybe it's quality over quantity, because you can buy $4 grill brushes all day long, but they might be leaving spokes on the top of the grill deck.
I got a feeling that it won't be long before Amazon or some outfit in China is duplicating and ripping them off and driving the price down, and they'll be forced to follow the price downward. I noticed on their website today when I was poking around, they're getting into other products. So it looks like they're starting to expand into other things. That black thing was a sort of a kitchen sponge type thing.
Yeah.
But in any case, it's called Grill Rescue. You can get it on Amazon or from their website, Grill Rescue. And it works, and it cleans the top sides of the grates pretty darn well.
What do you think in our minute and 15 seconds left? Why all of a sudden, with all the information that we have on how to tell when your steak is done internally with thermometers, that there is a rash of articles coming out from really reputable news sources that are saying ditch the thermometer or don't get the tech. All you need to do is do the finger to the thumb and now poke the meat of your thumb, and that's what a medium rare or a medium steak. I can't believe that we're perpetuating this misinformation.
I've seen it too. In fact, you sent me one. I think this was a young woman. This is a technique that has been around for years, and people are assigned to write about cooking on a grill, how to cook a steak. And somehow she stumbled into one of these ancient articles. I mean, look, my hand feels different than a young woman's hand.
Yeah.
Or a big fat guy, his hand. And a filet mignon feels different than a sirloin. So poking your hand, they show you how to clench your fists and fingers. Right. That's absolutely absurd. And anyone with half a brain would recognize this as absurd. But it's a myth, and the barbecue world, as you know, is full of myths. I've made it a mission of mine to bust as many of them as I can. This is one that keeps perpetuating, and it'll likely be there long after you and I are gone.
There was 2 articles in 3 days. There was the one I'd sent you, and then 2 days later, there was another one that picked it up that was talking about the same stuff. Nonsense. If you're asking me. As BBQ says in her live demos when she does her big steak stack thing, she talks about the importance of a thermometer. She's like, don't do the hand poke test. Look at me. Every inch of my body is medium rare. So don't talk to me about this, that, and the other thing. Get your thermometer, know where your temperatures are, and that's the bottom line, because like you said, everybody's different. So everybody's thumb and forefinger and pinky and middle finger aren't going to be feeling the same. Get the thermometer, of course. And then temperature, we know, is the only thing where you know if it's medium rare or if it's medium well or somewhere in between.
And it's a safety issue also. Yes. I mean, we talked about the chicken. You really don't want to undercook chicken or ground beef. And It's a safety thing. So, and there's so many good thermometers out there now. We've given a platinum medal to a $20 instant read.
Yeah.
The Thermopop, which is everybody's inexpensive favorite, is I think around $30. The Thermopen, which is near the top of the line, $100. All kinds. Yeah, get a Thermopop. Very inexpensive, very reliable. I don't know how many people know, but we have on AmazingRibs.com an electrical engineer who tests thermometers for us. He's got special equipment that measures, is it accurate and how fast does it read? And then he cooks with them and tries them. And we have over 200 thermometers, hands-on, detailed, accurate reviews. And we don't sell any, but we're linked to them. And there's actually some that are even less expensive than the Thermopop, although that's a really good choice. It's a very reputable company.
Second Tuesday of the month, regular guest is right here. It's Meathead from AmazingRibs.com. If you have any questions or you would like to know more about this industry and topic that we hold so dear, head on over to AmazingRibs.com and check it out if you've never done that. Meathead, we will see you in March.
See you.
That's Meathead right there. I was not aware of Grill Rescue, but with a Kevlar pad ready to go, I'm always looking for a great grill brush. I'm not afraid to spend a little money as far as that's concerned. Always safety. You don't want to cheap out on safety. You remember our pal Derek Riches had a big grassroots movement of trying to get bristle brushes taken off the market, period. That never came to fruition. But he really tried. I'm sure he would be happy with this Grill Rescue brush as well, like Meathead is. We have Robert Moss ready to go. Before we do that, we'll talk to you about Primo Grills. By the way, they are at the HPB Expo exhibiting right now. Probably not right now, but tomorrow for sure, all day during the day. What do we love about ceramic cookers? We love that they're fuel efficient. We love that they can achieve low and slow temperatures for traditional barbecue meat. We love that they can get really hot for high temperature grilling of steaks and other thin cuts like I did the other night. What's missing in the everyday ceramic grill lineup? The real ability to do true two-zone cooking. Two-zone cooking is very important to both professional and backyard cooks alike. It's the best way to manage a fire and cook with confidence. However, getting a two-zone fire in a round ceramic cooker is not very realistic. Why? Because it's round. Enter Primo Grill and the game-changing oval design. The shape gives you the ability to execute that two-zone setup that you desire. It also gives you the other ceramic grill benefits as well. When you break it down, there's 60 different ways to configure the Primo cooker and cook on it. So you're only limited by your culinary imagination. If you are in and around Nashville, if you want to try your hand at walking through the HPB Expo out there in Nashville, Primo is there. They'll be in the Empire Comfort booth. It's huge because they do a lot of other stuff besides grills. Plus, they own Broil Master Gas Grill. Check them out. See if you can configure it 60 different ways right there in the booth site. As for Nick Bauer, I'm sure Nick's there. Pressing the flesh, getting new dealers, and all that fun stuff. See what new accessories they might be limiting out to all the different cookers and sizes. By the way, only sold through dealers, primogrill.com. To find a dealer near you, then visit the dealer in person, check out the oval that best fits your needs, and then buy it. You'll be happy you did. Primogrill.com. That's primogrill.com. And again, exhibiting at the HPB Expo right now in Nashville. We're back with Robert Moss right after this. Stick around. Be right back.
You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Howard Stern, Jim Rome, Dan Patrick, and Greg Rempe. The Mountain Rushmore of talk show entertainment. Now, let's get back to the Barbecue Central Show.
And we thank Meathead for joining us last segment. AmazingRibs.com, his website. This portion of the show being brought to you by Fireboard, who I also believe is exhibiting at HPB Expo in Nashville. You can monitor up to 6 different temperatures simultaneously. You can connect to Wi-Fi for cloud-based monitoring. You can connect via Bluetooth if you prefer. If you want to add a little automatic temperature controlled device fan to it, you can get the Drive, connect it right to the module. Alexa, the Google Assistant, are also integrated with Fireboard, so find out more by visiting fireboard.com or call 816-945-2232 for your questions. My next guest, the contributing editor, barbecue editor for Southern Living Magazine. He is an accomplished author, restaurant critic, podcast host, and a 2023 Barbecue Central Show's Guest Hall of Fame inductee. We welcome back our pal Robert Moss. We're asking everybody for a YouTube poll question of the week, Robert, that now that the NFL season is officially over this past Sunday with a Chiefs pulling down another world title, will you be watching the UFL in spring to supplement your potential football loss?
Hard no.
Hard no. All right. So I said
I barely watched NFL this year, so no.
Are you under a protest, or you just had too much?
No,
other things
I'm from the South. We like college football. We don't have a lot of pro team loyalty down here, so I barely watch the NFL as it is. And last thing I need is yet another football league out there.
Last month, towards the end of the conversation, we were talking about mustard-based sauces, and I specifically called out a brand, Reverend Marvin's mustard-based barbecue sauce. Well, back when it was out selling, there was the original. There was also a spicy version, and I wanted to follow back up with you and see if you had any other further thoughts.
Well, I just wanted to look into it a little bit, and because I had not heard of it, but it wasn't too hard to turn up. Yeah, there definitely was a Reverend Marvin's mustard sauce. Interesting story. Back in the 1980s, a guy named Marvin Lynch, who was actually a dean of admissions at Francis Marion University. And if you're not from South Carolina, you probably won't know Francis Marion University, but it's up in the swamps around Florence, South Carolina. And he was the dean of admissions, but also a lay preacher. So he was definitely a reverend and cooked at a lot of church barbecues and everything else, and started bottling his sauce. And it was I think a big product in sort of the middle part of South Carolina. But I think what happened is at some point, the original Reverend Marvin passed away, but I think his son was selling it probably at the time that you encountered it. But definitely a South Carolina style mustard sauce. What I think was interesting from the articles about it is it's a mustard sauce, but one of the ingredients mentioned is ketchup. And there's a sort of not too well known fifth sauce in South Carolina, which you find in certain parts of the middle part of the state, that is a blend of mustard and ketchup. So it's a little bit of the red sauce, a little bit of the yellow sauce. It's this like rusty orange color. If you've people who've been to South Carolina have been to the Duke's barbecue restaurants down here, which is a family that runs a bunch of barbecue restaurants, they call it rust gravy, but it's this sort of like orange sauce that blends mustard and ketchup both. And it sounds like the Reverend Marvin Lynch's sauce was in that category.
Before we get going on the topic here this evening, I want to preface our conversation and say, if you're somebody that is a lover of barbecue history, if you love having reference material of live fire, then you want to make sure, if you don't already have a copy, you pick up a copy of Robert Moss's book, Barbecue, The History of an American Institution, originally published, if you can believe it, Robert, I don't know if you're aware of this, in 2010. So 14 years ago. Yeah. And an expanded edition 4 years ago, and I know a lot of the discussion is probably going to be based on that. How does that? You ever thought about doing yet another revision of that book, or is that something you could just do ongoing every 5 years?
The original one was in 2010. After I had submitted the manuscript to the press, Aaron Franklin opened his little barbecue trailer on the side of the interstate on I-35 in Austin. And the barbecue scene just changed dramatically over the next 10 years. So it was, I had to write another book to fill in the gaps that I'd missed, but also to tack 10 years on. I have a feeling about 2030 will be time for another one. So I think there'll be a third edition coming out at some point, but I'm going to give myself at least, another 6-7 years to get that one written.
The topic tonight is exploring the lesser known meats and regional variations in Southern barbecue throughout history. For the folks that are coming into this, especially over the last, let's say, 2, 3, 4 years, really in the pandemic ages where folks maybe didn't even have an interest in learning how to do any type of live fire cooking, but now they're forced to be at home for God knows how long. They bought multiple cookers, multiple different styles. They're on YouTube trying to figure out how to use them, how to cook them properly, but they don't have the breadth of knowledge and the wealth of information of the history of all of this. And that's when we bring in the expert, Robert Moss, to talk about it. So everybody knows ribs and pork shoulder, whole hog, brisket, sausage, whatever. But as you look back through the history of barbecue, have there been other cuts of meat, beef, whatever, that were the briskets and the pork ribs of the day back then, and that here they were in all their majesty, and somehow they've just gone by the wayside?
Yeah, the short answer is yes, and then the long answer is where I'm going to dig into all the different words that you used. So, you said regional styles of barbecue, and you mentioned cuts of meat, and I think it helps to go back to the beginning. Well, not the very beginning, but we'll go back to the 19th century, before there were restaurants, when barbecue was this outdoor cooking tradition. And the amazing thing really is, in the 19th century, barbecues, whether in your Virginia, you're in Ohio, you're in Texas, they're very similar in nature. And we say cuts of meat, there really weren't cuts of meat, because in the 19th century, it was a whole animal cooking tradition. So you might have, if you're cooking a cow, that might be cut into quarters. So you might have a quartered cow, but by and large, everything else was cooked whole. Yeah. And definitely in the 19th century, beef, pigs, sheep, the top three barbecue meats. Everything but the beef cooked whole. The beef would be split in half or cut into quarters, cooked literally in a trench in the ground over coals. And it was the same all over the place. So you really have this regional variation in meat. That said, why didn't you have the regional variation in meat? Well, because at the time, these events were not, it wasn't a commercial enterprise. It wasn't a restaurant. So these were community events that were being staged for big celebrations, 4th of July, things like that, a lot of political barbecues. And the meat that was cooked was just donated by local farmers. So whatever they had on hand that they were willing to donate, they would, no refrigeration. They would take it to the wherever the barbecue's going to be. They would slaughter it right there and butcher it right there and at the pit and put it over the coals. And so you might see in Georgia, you would see, pigs, sheep, cows, goats, venison, just about everything, regardless of where you were. And by and large, it was very large cuts. And it wasn't until the 20th century that began to change, and you begin to get more regional variation. And then as you get refrigeration in a meat industry, then you started to see more specialization in smaller cuts of meats on the pit.
When you talk about cooking in the trenches, they, burn down coals or whatever, something along these lines. Or, was there charcoal back then that was in regular use that you know of?
Oh, no, it was, a barbecue was, it was almost always held in a grove of trees. So in the woods, because you think about it, no air conditioning. These tended to be in the summer. If you're in July, particularly in the South, but also in the Midwest, you need shade. And so there are these sort of regular barbecue groves, which are these little stands of trees, which, were cleared out between them, but they would actually go dig pits. You can find all these images of them down in, out in these woods. And they would chop down trees from right there around it and bring them to the pits, fill them up, and, set them on fire and burn the wood down the coals, and then spread them out and cook over them. So then, charcoal was a phenomenon of the 20th century. We'll probably get to that in a later episode. That was very much tied to in industrialism and everything else. Back then, it was all wood, chopped down, and not the day of, because you had to cure it, but they would bring firewood in from wherever they held their firewood.
Are the quarter cows or the whole hogs, whatever, laid directly onto the coals at that point in the trenches, or are they laid over the trench for at least a little bit of space?
The trench would be about 1.5 feet, 2 feet deep, coals in the bottom, and then there would be either green hardwood sticks, green rods, or iron. laid across them, and then the meat would be laid across the rods. And you can actually see that lots of the pictures and paintings is, it's sort of like a pit with stakes across it that the meat would be held up about 18 inches to 2 feet above the actual coals.
So most of these meats stayed around, except one of them seems to have faded away. Now, not all the way away, but out of the 4 that you mentioned, lamb seems to be the one that has gone more or less by the wayside to a certain degree. Why do you think that is?
So I've actually dug into this a lot, and there's sort of 2 stages to it. First, you have the transition of barbecue from the outdoor tradition, free large community events, occasional 4th of July, campaign barbecue, what have you, to the development of first barbecue stands and then commercial barbecue restaurants. They sort of evolved in the early 20th century. In the process, your meats become a little more standardized. But before World War II, whether you're in Georgia, you're in Texas, you're in Kentucky, you're in Ohio even, if you see the typical menu from a barbecue restaurant, it's pork and lamb first, and they may have a couple other things on there, but lamb was always on the restaurant menu. And then after World War II, that began to fade and fade and fade. So lamb was really, a lot of times, the very first item listed on the menu before the World War II in one of the early barbecue joints. Lots of, like, if you think of any classic barbecue joint that's been around before World War II, they probably were serving lamb, like Fresh Air in Georgia, in Jackson, Georgia, or Arthur Bryant's in Kansas City. All of them served lamb at some point back in the early days. Lamb in general just disappeared from the American dining scene. I did some research into it at some point. Back in the 20s and 30s, Americans consumed somewhere between 6 and 8 pounds of lamb per person. And then that went steadily downhill, per person per year. And that went steadily downhill after World War II. If you read, if you go Google that and say, what happened to lamb, you'll see a lot of stories that GIs went off to World War II and they got these terrible rations that were mutton, these mutton rations that they got overseas. And they came back home and they said, I never want to eat lamb again or mutton again, and sheep and lamb. And by the way, the only difference between a mutton and sheep, or mutton and lamb, they're both sheep. A lamb is sheep that's a year or less. Mutton is a year or older. But the story is that they came back from overseas and said, I never want to eat lamb again or mutton again. And that was the end of mutton. If you actually look at the numbers, mutton and lamb sales started to decline in the 20s and went steadily downward through World War II, steadily downward through the 1950s. And it really had nothing to do. You would expect it to drop off right after World War II, but it just sort of goes steadily down. It has more to do with agriculture and the price of lamb and mutton, and the fact that wool production was always very closely tied to lamb and mutton prices. So when the price of wool was high, lots of farmers would raise a bunch of lambs because they would be growing big flocks of sheep to produce wool. And then guess what? In the fall, when they sheared them, the lamb would be on sale. It'd be really, really cheap. And the next year, there wouldn't be so much lamb because the wool prices were higher. So it fluctuated a lot. And then after World War II, it was very expensive to raise. And you sort of had to choose as a rancher as things got bigger and bigger. Do I want to grow cows or do I want to grow sheep? And by and large, most ranchers went with cattle. Per head, it was cheaper. They made more money off of them. And sheep has never recovered. I think the last I checked, we're eating about 1.3 pounds of lamb per person per year, which is down like 8-fold over, before World War II.
When you found it in the barbecue restaurants, was it like what a whole hog would be, where it's everything kind of chopped together? You get it as a sandwich? Is it mostly legs? Is it the rack? What is it?
Well, you can still get it today if you go to Owensboro, Kentucky, and places like that, where they still serve mutton. But best I understand, you have to be a little careful. It's sort of funny. Like if you go to Keen's Chop House in Manhattan, which is one of my favorite steakhouses, they have a mutton chop, which is sort of like the signature thing for their restaurant. They will admit it's actually not mutton; it's lamb. They can't get good mutton in Manhattan, so they it's a lamb chop, but it's a very thick, big lamb chop. Delicious. I would still recommend it. But I think Owensboro actually does import mutton that's about 2 years old. So it's sheep's a little bit old. It is mutton shoulder. So it's cooked very much like a pork shoulder would be, slow cooked and then sort of chopped, sliced, however you want to do it. There's a few places in Western Kentucky where you can get chipped mutton, which is where they take the mutton and chop it in very, very fine bits and mix it with this savory sauce, put it on rye bread of all things. And it's absolutely delicious. Rye bread with pickles and onions. It's one of the best barbecue dishes I've ever had, but it's very hard to find. It's only in a few locations. I keep hoping that lamb and barbecues will make a comeback, but I've not seen any evidence of it so far.
If you go present day, if I go to BJ's Wholesale Club or a Sam's Club, look for a rack of lamb, and then I look at the price of a steak, rack of lamb's pretty friggin' expensive. It's delicious, but for the amount I'm going to spend on that steak and the amount I'm going to get versus a rack of lamb is £1.50 is a pretty big rack of lamb. Usually it's like 1.25 pounds or so, and it's $32 for the rack of lamb. I mean, cost per pound and yield, it's not nearly as attractive. It's delicious, and I'm a convert, and I love it, and I have been for the last 5 or 6 years. And I will opt to buy it on purpose. But I think the general consuming public might want to try it, and then they see the price. That's strike number one. And then if they're at all squeamish, they take it out of the cryovac, and you have that initial lamb smell hit, and that might turn you off too.
Absolutely. There is a definitely gamey smell. It's hard to describe until you actually smell it. But if you eat lamb, there is that sort of very lamby smell. A friend of mine says you can taste the wool. It tastes like you're eating wool. I love it. I've grown to love it. But I would agree. And this is what happened after World War II is as farmers increasingly, because it used to be you could get sheep anywhere. The sheep were raised all over the country. So if you're in South Carolina, you're a barbecue joint in 1930s, you want to sell lamb or mutton, there's a sheep farmer down the road who has sheep probably alongside his pigs and his cows and everything else. But as agriculture became more specialized, increasingly you either were growing cows or you're growing lamb. As more and more people were growing cows and not sheep, and it became more expensive. And there was this definite phenomenon in the 50s and 60s where lamb consumption almost disappeared in all the country except for the big urban centers like Boston, New York, San Francisco, Los Angeles, where it was sort of this like premier premium meat. And I think it's kept that way ever since. So it used to not be such a huge price differential between lamb and beef and pork. It was sort of, in fact, lamb, because it varied so much based upon the wool market, some years it'd be very, very cheap. So you might eat a lot of lamb because it was cheap, but that's not the case anymore. And you're absolutely right. If you want to go buy a rack of lamb, they're per pound very expensive, and they're about this big. They're not very big. So you're not getting this massive tomahawk. There's no such thing as a tomahawk lamb steak. It's usually a thing about the size of a hockey puck at best, usually smaller than that. But I think that's more dynamic of the market and how it's evolved than not anything fundamental about lamb and sheep. But if you can get a good lamb shoulder and barbecue it, it is a fantastic thing.
Always delivering the best information. It's Robert Moss, robertfmoss.com, his website. Robert, appreciate the look back here and looking forward to tackling those subjects through the rest of the year. We'll look for you in March.
Hey, sounds great. Thanks, Greg.
It's Robert Moss right there. All right, so I made sure that we had the clock right as we're jumping out here. Maybe we went a little long with Meathead, but Robert Moss delivering some great information there on the lesser-known cuts in the history of barbecue. And who knew lamb was so popular and then all of a sudden did a nosedive there at the end. So if you've never had it, as Sam the cooking guy once said last week, I'm not very adventurous. I got over the lamb part. Suck it up a couple different times. I know $30 for a rack of lamb is a little tough. It's delicious if you cook it right. Medium rare, tops. All right, we are pointing to the second hour. You stick around, and we'll be right back. You're listening and watching the Barbecue Central show right here on the Barbecue Central Network.
Hi, this is Jeff Stone of Grandpa's Pride Barbecue from the Panhandle of Florida, and you are listening to the Barbecue Central Show.
Happy to have you aboard here for the really big barbecue show.
We cook because we have to, and we grill because we want to.
Hit me! Fine, how you doing?
You have a great show. I'm a big fan.
Boing.
So what seems to be the problem here? This man looks like he's dead, and he's in the crackle. Charbono! It's all about the Charbono, dude!
Succulent fish. What?
He ate 2 feet or wiener.
Oh, listen, Lavernius, shake your face.
I'm shaking like a dog shit peach seeds.
We have top men working on it right now. Top men.
And just like that, we are into the second hour. It's the Barbecue Central Show, where we talk about the most important things that are happening in the live fire industry to date. The show originating from
Palm City, USA, Cleveland.
If you missed the first hour, don't worry. We are recording. You can get that podcast early morning tomorrow. On Thursday, you'll get hour number 2 of the show. On Friday, you will get a best of, which we'll talk about here in just a second. Still to come on the show this evening, Melzie Wilson, the organizer at Smoke Slam Barbecue Festival. She'll be joining us for no less than 1, possibly 2 segments. We say good evening to those of you watching tonight through one of our video streaming platform partners. You may or may not be able to go to Facebook, which I am sure, at least on my end, isn't going through, but maybe it has. Well, hold on. Let me look through the thing here. It says it's going to Stream 1, which should be Facebook, but I don't know exactly where that is. Maybe it's on my personal page now. It's been going to the show page for years. But when I went to turn it on today, it was not going to go to the show page, so that's fine. Maybe it's on the personal page. Facebook.com/BBQ Central Show. You may or may not find it there. You will find it. Twitter.com/BBQ Central Show. You will also find it over on YouTube, which is youtube.com/@BBQ Central Show, where we also have a YouTube poll question of the week, and we're asking everybody this question. Okay, this question. Will you watch the UFL this spring since the NFL season is officially over as of this past Sunday? And 69% of you are saying you will not watch it. You will not.
Andrew, you are
not watching the UFL. All right. 31% of you love football a lot. You'll watch it no matter what. Coming up on the best moments of the Barbecue Central Show in 10 minutes or less this coming Friday, episode 321, taking you back to February 21st, 2012. 2012? I think so. This time around, 2012, we feature a highly accomplished pitmaster, a sauce maker, a co-packer, from where? Wauchula, Florida. Matt Barber of Hot Wauchulas. Believe it or not, back in 2012, it was Matt's first time appearing on the show. He went on to appear a number of times after this. And for a good portion of time, Matt was one of the most dominant teams on the FBA circuit. He also did quite well over on the KCBS side of things when he traveled to those. Remember, a lot of the folks that were competing in Florida Barbecue Association, I'm talking about it like it's not a thing anymore. It is. But when we were really covering competition barbecue on the show, all sanctioning bodies concerned, a lot of the folks that were doing FBA were doing that one because there were not a lot of KCBS contests that were even remotely close. I'm talking within 8 to 10 hours, especially if you lived on the Gulf side and you were more south. You were kind of screwed in that whole thing. So the FBA brought competition to you locally in your state. And then for those of you that were really into it, you wanted to travel out, try some other sanctioning bodies, maybe you do some SCA, what was that? SCBBQA, South Carolina Barbecue Association. Maybe you do KCBS. Maybe you do some Memphis in May, Memphis Barbecue Network stuff. But FBA was huge, still pretty big thing going on. Matt was doing very well in FBA, also KCBS. As I had mentioned a few moments ago, Matt also runs a highly successful co-packing business, and he is especially helpful to the folks that are looking to get into the sauce and rub business. And he doesn't require huge initial orders like a lot of the other companies that do across the country. So if you're looking to get into this part of the business, you don't need a huge initial order. You can get some really great guidance, insight, maybe a price quote from Matt. Certainly a trusted source for insight and intel as far as that's concerned. And if you're not familiar with Matt, it's a good segment to get acquainted with him. He's coming off a Reserve Grand Championship at the then Sam's Club local event back in the day when Sam's Club was a thing, if you can remember that. So I think you'll enjoy it. You can subscribe to the Best of Show by going to thebbqcentralshow.com/subscribe and subscribing to the podcast feed. Don't forget, if you want to hear a guest or segment you think's been lost in the archives, email John, Jon, at thebbqcentralshow.com and let him know you would like to hear it. He'll do his best to meet your expectation. All right, I mentioned it with Meathead in the first hour, but we have a quick update. The raw chicken guy on Instagram is still alive, still pumping out raw chicken eating content. This is day 26. He's just shy of 400,000 Instagram followers. And today he consumed raw chicken breast with hot sauce on it. He also swallowed what appeared to be perhaps 6 to 8 raw eggs out of a glass. And then he also ate a whole non-shelled, a whole egg, a raw egg with the shell on it, dropped the whole thing in his mouth and ate it. Everything had hot sauce on it this time around. This guy's a monster. I feel like this is dangerous, and I'm not recommending anybody do it. But you can watch him on Instagram do it every day until he gets a tummy ache. And if you don't have a tummy ache by day 26, you're probably not going to get a tummy ache.
Get that big stuff out of here.
I'm wondering if I'll be interested next week, because I was less interested this week than I was the week before. And again, we're on day 26, so we're just over 4 weeks with it. Okay. Email from Peter in Indiana. Hey, Greg, I don't know if you're going to take this email the wrong way or not. But please know that this is not meant in a mean-spirited way. My question is this. Do you find it odd that Sam the cooking guy is a friend of yours? As in, don't you get more benefit from the relationship than he does? I'm not implying that there isn't a real friendship here. Obviously there is. But from an outsider like myself looking in, if I'm looking at the two of you independently, he should be getting booked on a podcast more in the vein of a Joe Rogan type famous show or something of that caliber versus Barbecue Central show. Again, no offense. Just wondered if you'd ever thought about it like that before. Podcast listener only. Regards, Pete. Pete, no offense taken. You know, it's funny that you mentioned that, Peter. I don't know if I've ever thought about it like that per se. I have often thought that I consider myself, lucky that I can actually call Sam a friend. We talk ad nauseum off air. What you see once a month, we're talking 10, 15, 20 times a month, text messaging at any and all hours of the night about nonsense. So I value and appreciate the friendship that Sam and I have been able to build over the last 12 or 13 years. Sam's been coming on the show since 2010. Might have been his first appearance. Maybe it was 2009, but not long after the live show started back in 2008 did I find Sam doing a live show of his own and reached out, and that's where the friendship started, or that's where the acquaintance started. And we've been able to become friends over time after that. I can sum it up in this way. Do I think he gets less benefit out of being my friend the way you're looking at it, Pete? 100%. I can't even argue that. Not even my wit, my wisdom, my Hollywood good looks can overcome what he has garnered, earned, and established within this industry. I almost feel like, I don't know if you listen to this podcast or not, but there's a show called the Pete and Sebastian Show. So you have Pete Corielli, stand-up comic. You have Sebastian Maniscalco, stand-up comic. Both of them doing the same thing. I'm not saying Sam and I are doing the same thing, but he's into cooking, I'm into cooking, whatever. Pete is an accomplished stand-up comedian. However, if you compare Sebastian Maniscalco to Pete, they're not even on the same level. Sebastian in movies, got the show on Max called The Bookie. He's selling out Madison Square Garden for comedy shows 5 nights in a row. Pete and Sebastian are not on the same playing field when it comes to success. However, it is undeniable the friendship and the camaraderie and the ability they have to go back and forth with each other in their podcast. If I were to sum up anything, I would say that is the best example of a Sam and Greg relationship. Sam being Sebastian, me being Pete Corielli, and somehow it just works. Even though Sam is mega famous and he's got almost 4 million YouTube subscribers, he's won multiple Emmys, and I have dick. Somehow, magic happens each and every month when he comes on the show, and that is backed up by a true friendship that we have outside of the show. And as he likes to point out every once in a while, we've never met in person. I do believe that within the next 12 months, that's probably going to change. And I feel like a floodgate opens up once that does happen. But again, highly appreciative, totally value the friendship. If it's one-sided or appears one-sided to you, Pete, that's on you. But I can't look at it that way because if I do, I'll cry. So I'm not even going to think about it. All right, we have Melzie Wilson ready to come in here. We're going to be talking about Smoke Slam, of course. So stay tuned for that. Before we get to her, I will talk to you about Franklin Barbecue Pits. The last couple weeks, we are here for the Certified Franklin Dealer Drive. You know, the telethons that they have for those shows trying to raise money. Forget about money. Well, don't forget about money, but we're trying to raise the dealer network number here for Franklin Barbecue Pit. So, if you frequent a live fire shop that does carry grills and they don't have any offset pits, high-level offset pits, I'm not talking about those pieces of crap, but they don't have a high-level offset pit, then I recommend you tell that person to get online at franklinbbqpits.com and search out where the dealer form or dealer application is and fill one out. That will follow up. Possibly, if everything works out, get you set up as a certified Franklin Barbecue Pits dealer. If you own a store, you're looking to get into selling pits, or you already sell them, you don't sell the offset, you want something that has a lot of notoriety, has a lot of name cachet with it, Franklin Barbecue Pit is the one you want to bring in. Not only does it have the name recognition and that type of pop within the general public, the thing is built like a beast, 1/4-inch steel. It's going to be around for 100 years or more as long as you care for it, right? There's not any of these moving parts, electric nonsense. It's not going to break. And the thing cooks like a dream. Holds temp perfect. You can run on a mix of splits and charcoal. You can just run charcoal. Throw in chunks of wood for wood smoke if you want. You can do the exact opposite. Supplement with charcoal to increase your wood split time. It's almost foolproof. It's not totally it's full pour, not foolproof. And as a business owner, don't you want to carry the cream of the crop? I called it the silent salesman last week, and really that's what it is. If you don't have one on the floor, you can talk about it all you want. The best selling is when it sells itself. For the customer to walk into your store, now that you're a new certified Franklin dealer, because you went to franklinbbqpits.com and you signed up to become a dealer, You got one on the floor, maybe you got 2, 3, 4 back in the warehouse. As you sell them off the floor, you can just recycle them in and out. Premier Pit. Let's go. Let's ramp up the pit count and let's ramp up the dealer count because everybody wants to live next to a certified Franklin Barbecue Pit dealer. Plus, you have accessories that you can put in. It's a great revenue stream to bring into the store. FranklinBBQPits.com. That's FranklinBBQPits.com. And we're back with Melzie Wilson right after this. Stick around. Be right back.
You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Howard Stern, Jim Rome, Dan Patrick, and Greg Rempe. The Mountain Rushmore of talk show entertainment. Now, let's get back to the Barbecue Central Show.
Welcome back. This portion of the show being brought to you by Pit Barrel Cooker, the most unbelievable outdoor cooking device on the planet. Currently available in 3 sizes. Doesn't matter if you're a beginner or a professional. It's a cooker you want to add to the arsenal, especially if you're looking into getting into the upright barrel cooker. This is the premier upright barrel cooker. PitBarrelCooker.com is the website, and tell them the Barbecue Central Show sent you. Joining me in the second hour tonight, a well-respected and accomplished barbecue professional. She has been credited with bringing the Memphis Barbecue Network sanctioning to this year's new event, Smoke Slam. For years and years, a name associated with contests like Memphis in May, but like some other big names in the industry this year, she has joined the steering committee on what will be the other barbecue festival that takes place Thursday, May 16th through Saturday, May 18th. Here to talk about her history in Memphis barbecue and, of course, Smoke Slam is first-time guest Melzie Wilson. Melzie, appreciate you coming on the show here this evening, talk all about Smoke Slam and all this other stuff. Before we do that, we have a YouTube poll question of the week, and we're asking all guests and everybody watching on YouTube this. Will you watch the the UFL this spring now that the NFL season officially ended this past Sunday?
Football fanatic. So I have to say, I'll say yes. Maybe.
All right. 30% of you are voting yeses, and 70% of us's are voting no's. I said my time is fleeting, so I can't waste time on second-rate anything. I have to watch the elite of the elite because, if I was 20 years old, maybe I could waste some time, but I got no time to waste anymore. And we'll see how the rest of the poll works out.
I go into football withdrawals.
What's your team?
Well, I love SEC football. That's my game. But I'm also a season ticket holder for New Orleans Saints.
Are you really?
Yeah, wow. I have been since for almost 12, 13 years now.
Wow, long timer.
Yeah. I feel very fortunate.
Are you a Memphis native?
I was born and raised in the Mississippi Delta. Kind of made it through the South to Atlanta and Charlotte, North Carolina, and I've been here in Memphis since late 80s.
Always around barbecue growing up. I mean, obviously, when we're talking about the South, I think a lot of people would stereotypically think that everybody down there is Southern style barbecue related somehow, but is that how it went for you?
I grew up as a kid on a farm, and it was nothing for July 4th, and they'd do a backhoe, and they'd bury a calf, they'd bury, goat, pig, you name it, and cover it in tin, and July 4th, everybody'd be happy.
How do you get involved in competition barbecue? How do you first find out about it?
Well, a friend of mine asked me to volunteer for Memphis in May, and I started as an ambassador, and I worked my way through. I just loved it. I love the people. I love working with the teams, and some of those first-year people I met are still my dearest friends today. So I feel very, very fortunate to have been exposed to barbecue early on. Uh, through those connections and through working very hard, I went through ambassadors and worked my way up to chair of ambassadors. And then when uh, Memphis and May decided not to become or carry on the sanctioning network across the country, and Memphis Barbecue Network was formed, then I went and joined being a rep with Memphis Barbecue Network for some time. Then came back to Memphis and May to run their judging for a bit. And then from there, I went on to chair barbecue. And then for the last few years, I worked media with them.
What was that first year you did Memphis and May, the very first one?
You know, I was trying to think because, you know, we were going to talk about myself. I want to say it was either 99 or 2000.
Oh, wow.
I can't remember.
When you look back over what is a long history involved with Memphis and May, and obviously you have a lot of great memories there, but I remember having Kerry Bringle on towards the end of last year, and he's a little bit of a lightning rod as far as his decision to go away from Memphis and May, join the steering committee on Smokeslam. We'll talk about that with you here in a second. And he listed a very compelling number of grievances, for lack of a better term, of here's what it used to be like, here's why I loved it, and then over time these things started getting taken away from the festival. And it wasn't always just about the barbecue side of things. There were many things that he thought should have been left in, to a point where he seemed a bit disenchanted. There's a new opportunity that opens up. He's open up to doing it. He's not afraid of taking any heat, whether it be locally in person in Nashville or obviously through social media. So he joins the steering committee. When you look back over your time in Memphis and May, what were the great things? And then as time wears on, what made you open to fielding what ended up being a question of, hey, are you interested in joining a steering committee too?
Right. You know, you had Malcolm on. And so I've been very blessed to see Malcolm win Grand in patio and look at Malcolm today.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen those substantial changes and what an impact. Barbecue was barbecue back then. Right now, in the last 10, 12 years, barbecue's sexy. You know, barbecue is that lightning rod of everybody wants to be a part of, which back then it wasn't to that extent. So I have to say that I've worked very hard, and I work very hard with Memphis and May and other volunteers and other people with the organization. And I don't say I'm doing it at all. I've learned a great deal, but it's a very large contest, and there's some things they have to hold true to in their work. And what I saw with talking to everybody at Smoke Slam was everything I dreamed it would be. It was like I wish for in a contest, what I wish for in these quality experiences the teams need to have, our judges, as well as our volunteers, because I've been a volunteer, you know, pretty much my whole career. So I really want to make sure that those particular groups are taken care of as we move forward with Smoke Slam.
I'm asking you to speculate, and if you don't want to, don't. Do you think Memphis and May, the event or the organization itself, is in some type of peril, whether it be financially or disinterest growing with the contest itself to where it might dry up in a year, 2 or 3? Do you think that's a real thing or not so much?
You know, all of us, you know, they're 501c, you know, their P&Ls are published. You read exactly what I read. You know, I wish everybody there the best, you know, to watch stage is pretty great. You know, it's one of the top contests. I I don't want to speculate on something because I'm not in the room. I see that the numbers like you do. I know that what the losses have been, but Mac out just this past week talking about how strong and what a financial great future they had. So
when were you
I mean,
approached by Smoke Slam to join the steering committee?
I wasn't directly approached by Smoke Slam. It was kind of like indirectly back in late fall toward, and then we seriously started talking around December about joining. And I talked to Carrie, I talked to several key people, but after I met with Milton and Mike and several people, I saw what they had to say. I loved what they wanted to do. I know there's been a lot of talk about a for-profit company versus a nonprofit. Nonprofit is just a type of organization. It doesn't mean you're a charity. It doesn't mean you're philanthropic. But when I look at what the founders of Forward Momentum and those connected with Smoke Slam, they are very driven toward giving back to the city, toward looking at great causes to incorporate within our event. And that's what got me, because I'm all about paying it forward. And I'm really excited about what we have moving in that area of philanthropic work that I hope that we can share very soon.
What are they bringing you on to do specifically? What are going to be your day-to-day roles?
I'm doing a little bit of everything. I was brought on because when you looked at the big picture, Memphis Presents is very strong in presenting events, and they just didn't have a contest type background with running an event like this. And so that's where my area of expertise comes in, with bringing together, we have the sanctioning bodies of the NBN, as we've noted, and we have World Food Championships that's coming in and doing our ancillaries. So we're very excited about bringing those two together for a sanctioned and promoting barbecue through those means. So just day to day, I am doing spreadsheets and working on team timelines, working with production to ensure that we're protecting the park, because we've got a great team looking out for that, and to maximize the space so we can see, just how many teams we can get into the area and have a great contest and run it timely, because it is going to have to run very timely.
So for the folks on the fence, those folks, I mean teams, and then just for the everyday fan that's kind of looking at this as I am, seeing a new event pop up, wondering how this is going to come off. Tell us about the event, specifically the competition, and how it's going to run and be judged.
Okay, so let's talk about the festival. It's a festival. It's very unique in the fact that we have not only a barbecue competition that's run by two great sanctioning bodies, but we also have that festival spirit, where we're going to have um, engagement with music. We've got some carnival rides. We've got a Ferris wheel. We've got a carousel. We really want to, like you say, we want those barbecue people to that are coming in to attend, that they have a good time. We're going to have engagement with um, hopefully some pork, some different products where we're able to engage with the general public as well as from a VIP standpoint. So it'll be a multi-level experience. We want everybody that walks in those gates to be able to have music, to be able to walk around and see the teams, as well as be very engaged from a interactive standpoint with some of the things we've got coming on.
How is the competition going to run?
We are going to have ancillaries, which I wrote them down just so I wouldn't forget anything. We've got World Food Championship. They're going to be running our ancillaries on Thursday and Friday. We've got dessert, duck, seafood, poultry, wings, beef, and one of my favorites, bacon. We do that at Hogs for a Cause, and I love it. And then we'll be giving those awards away on Friday night. And then Saturday is Pork Championship Day with Memphis Barbecue Network running that. And we'll have whole hog, we'll have pulled pork, and pork ribs. And it'll be unique. It won't be the standard MBN sanctioned event. It will be a combination of preliminary on sites as well as blind, and then with finals be on site as well.
What's the normal?
So we've got.
What's the normal Memphis barbecue? Is it just blind that first round and then on site through the finals?
Yes. They changed it up almost. I guess it's been almost 10 years ago, because it was just more affordable for teams. That's a lot of meat to prepare for, on site as well as blind, and then be prepared for your finals. So it was really a savings, and it's resulted in the Memphis Barbecue Network growing a great deal. I think they have 40 plus contests this year, and the team attendance is very high per event.
So in the past, you had to cook all three categories if you were a team? Wow.
Oh, no. You cooked any you wanted to. You could cook just ribs if you wanted to, or you could cook all three.
Got it. Same this year. So in Smoke Slam, you can cook all three if you want, or you can just cook ribs or pulled pork or whole hog.
You can do whatever you want to. You just got to cook one.
Entry fee wise, what are we looking at?
So for the smaller spaces, it was $2,000, and that includes your entry fees for the MBN. It included a MBN admin fee. It included two 20 amps 110s. It included a porta potty. I mean, we're trying to do as much as possible just to make it affordable for teams to come in and participate, because some just haven't been able to come and compete in Memphis because of cost, because they don't all have big sponsors.
Prize-wise, what are we looking at from a cash opportunity? I've mentioned it a few different times on the show, but if you want to break down what the ancillaries look like, and then, of course, what the major meets in an overall.
Yeah, so $250,000 total, which is the highest barbecue payout, I think, in history.
Huge. Yep.
Yes, huge. With the ancillaries, we're placing 5 in each category, and that's a total of $40,000. So, like you say, if you're cook a few ancillaries, and and most of the teams are signing up for all or multiple in the ancillaries, and then that I'm seeing so far. And then for MBN, for the pork championship, we have a $50,000 grand prize, and then our first places go from $15,000 to $5,000. Places 1 through 5.
If you just cook MBN and you win a major meat, so pulled pork, whole hog, or ribs, you get $15,000 for that, and then that puts you in the running for overall. If you win overall, now you're totaled at 65, and that's before any ancillaries you might win, 65. And you could get money on top of that. And World Food Championship invites, right?
Yes, I was just about to add that.
Wow.
Each first we have will get a ticket to the World Food Championships. So it's a win-win. We plan on having a great time, from a general public foodie aspect to great barbecue competition.
Do you know if there's any type of multi-year agreement that's set in place right now between Smoke Slam and Memphis River Park's partnership, specifically with Tom Lee Park?
Mm-hmm. Yes. I can elaborate a little bit on that. We're here for the long haul. We have a 10-year agreement.
Wow.
So we're looking forward to really making Smoke Slam that event to attend and be a part of. and the excitement I'm feeling from the teams is just great. It's awesome.
How many are signed up, like locked and loaded right now?
I don't really want to release. I can release it to you a little bit later, just because we're trying to maximize the park as much as possible. So we've got meetings tomorrow again to see how we can fit the teams in. We don't want to be huge, Greg. We want to make sure we have a controlled area where we're utilizing those spaces we can. We want to be very cognizant of the park and the load-bearing road. We've got to be very careful on that.
Can I have you hold on 1 second here? I'll do a piece of business. We'll come back and talk about some other stuff related to Smoke Slam.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
All right.
Yeah,
Stand
sure.
by. We're talking with Melzie Wilson from Smoke Slam, the organizer over there, and just learning that there's a 10-year agreement. So, indeed, long haul, yes, I would say so. I would have been shocked at like a 3-year deal. Listen up, gang. Our friends over at Big Papa Smokers have something special just for you, the listener of the show. Whether you're a seasoned pitmaster or grilling newbie, Big Papa Smokers is your one-stop shop for all things barbecue, from their championship rubs, mouth-watering sauces, essential accessories. They've got what you need to take your food to the next level, whether you're on the competition circuit or you're just in the backyard like me. Here's the cherry on top. Big Papa Smokers is offering the listeners of the Barbecue Central show an exclusive deal. Use promo code REMPE at checkout. That's REMPE. You'll get $10 off your next $50 purchase of rubs, sauces, and accessories. Now, imagine the possibilities. Evaluate your ribs with Big Papa's Sweet Money or Sweet Money Hot. Or add Big Papa's Desert Gold to your chicken or vegetables, or better yet, pick up Double Secret. Put it on your steak. Head on over to BigPapaSmokers.com and start shopping today. Don't forget to use the promo code REMPE, R-E-M-P-E, at checkout to claim your $10 off your next order of $50 or more. You're saving money. It's easy. Don't forget to check out Big Papa's full line of recipes at Cooking with Big Papa. That's cookingwithbigpapa.com. Of course, follow him on social media as well. Promo code REMPE to save you $10 off of $50. We're back with more Melzie Wilson and Smoke Slam right after this. Stick around. Be right back.
You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Whole packers, full racks, legs and thighs, injecting butts. If you've never heard this before, you might think you found the best XXX show ever. Let's get back to the most homoerotic host out there today, Greg Rempe.
We welcome you back here, Barbecue Central Show, and we're talking with Melzie Wilson from Smoke Slam. The website, of course, smokeslam.com. If you want to check it out while we're talking, maybe you're interested in team signing up, you can do that there as well. So we learned as we were headed out that there's a 10-year agreement between Smoke Slam, Memphis River Parks partnership. So certainly encouraging to hear that there was that type of self-belief in this event, from both sides of the fence, by the way, that this is going to be something that's going to continue to grow and gain popularity. So I've talked to a lot of people about this event. No one seems to believe that this is sheer coincidence that Tom Lee Park opens up and magically there's a brand new contest to backfill the vacancy in the park. And this may be before. So I guess the long question is this. You look back at last year's Memphis in May taking place in a newly renovated Tom Lee Park. They have it. It's tore up, at least according to where the damage bill is, at $1.4 million. And then they're on the hook for, after deposits, $600,000, $700,000, whatever it is. Now they're battling in court, whatever. Mm-hmm. Is there a worry that a brand new Smoke Slam is going to slot in to a area that has already seen a fairly major barbecue competition, and at the end of it, there's going to be a huge bill for repairing roads and sod and sprinkling machines and fences and small kids and whatever else.
Right. So, we were talking about earlier about, limit space for teams participating. We're very cognizant of the fact that we have to keep to those load-bearing, roads. And then we've brought in specialists. Memphis Presents, to begin with, has experts in having events in those sensitive areas. So they've got that experience. But we have brought in let me get it right, an environmental planning project team.
Wow.
And so they will be working hand in hand with us. Last Monday, every director head within the event for the whole month came in, and we walked Tom Lee Park. We walked it with MRPP. We had specialists with our vendors with, laying track, making sure that, what curbs we could come across. There's a lot of preventive maintenance and preventive measures being put into place in order to minimize all of that to a max.
Is there any expectation set by Memphis River Parks that even with your best efforts, expect to get X type of bill by the time this thing is over, or no?
That wasn't even discussed. I mean, they were very thankful that we brought them in, that they will be hand in hand with us and with production guys, and as we move forward. I mean, they ask a lot of questions, and we had all the right answers. I'm very fortunate to work with such a phenomenal team in Memphis Presents.
Isn't there any type of worry though that if you don't talk about that in advance, like that's not the bill you want as the surprise bill? So any insight
Correct.
you can get ahead of time where we think it might not exceed X or Y, then at least there's some type of expectation set and not just hoping for the best.
Well, I mean, that's why all these preventive measures are being put into place. I mean, a great deal is being put, once I can show some, we could look at the diagram of what is being put in to give a thorough way for teams to get to their places in order to minimize damage. Everything's being done to where we don't discuss a bill like was in the past.
To your knowledge, there were no discussions about this event or no bringing it up before Memphis in May last year?
Not to my knowledge, and we had a great meeting with MRPP. They were in most of our meetings on Monday, and like I said, we walked the full length of the park, and he was very pleased with everything Mike, Jerry, everybody had to say about what was going to happen.
One of the most recurring questions that I hear, and that's being asked of me, and I don't know why anybody asks me any questions about this. Why is this going on the same weekend as Memphis in May? It's affecting the turnout for both events. If you're going to have them on the same weekend, you're pulling from the same competition pool, and in the end, it's hurting everybody. It's not helping everybody. So why go against Memphis in May on the same weekend?
Greg, I'm going to have to disagree with you because we're taking a little bit of different approach. Like I said, we're using the NBN to begin with from a competition standpoint. We are utilizing the NBN and the World Food Championship. We've got teams coming from both those areas. They together have over 500 competitive active teams. So will there be some teams that will move over? And I'm sure there will be that won't cook in the other contest. But, there's a lot of teams that we're seeing strong NBN, strong World Food. I mean, I got contacted by a team. It's KCBS teams. It's 4 teams that have gotten together and they're going to compete. So you're going to see a different platform of phenomenal pit masters that are going to be performing and it's a performance. I consider barbecue competition a sport myself. And there's going to be a lot of great competition down there, a lot of great teams. And and with a twist, besides that awesome event with the barbecue, we're going to have a festival. We've got music. We've got War that's headlining on Friday night, which that's been, War, I'm not going to sing. I don't sing, but it's been playing in my head ever since they told me. So we've got War. We've got, we're looking at local music. We've got, we're hopefully, bringing in and kind of like doing like a festival, mini arcade, as I said, along with the Ferris wheel, the carousel. We're going to have interactive sections of the park where, our audience, whether VIP or a general admission, can learn more about barbecue. We hope to have some demonstrations, some bazaar areas to profile local Memphis business, as well as barbecue business and products. So, it's going to be a festival. It's going to be a fun time, whether you're a barbecue person or you're just in the area visitor and want to have a great time in a great looking park down on the river.
So people are reading too much into the same weekend?
I think so. This is Memphis. This is barbecue country. No shame to anybody else, Texas or anybody else that says, they're the barbecue capital. But Memphis can bring it. I mean, they really can. And the surrounding areas. I mean, we've got teams coming in from 12 states. That's a lot of impact to the city of Memphis, to tourism, to hotels, restaurants, etc., grocery stores, buying stuff. So we're just very proud that we're able to come in, have the expertise, and pull off a phenomenal event for city of Memphis, for businesses, and for these great barbecue competition teams.
Let me give you a conspiracy theory, and you tell me if I'm full of shit or not. Here we go. To me, putting on...
You can cuss on your show?
Well, this is the internet, so we can do whatever we want.
Oh.
Putting on an event this big, head-to-head, with what many consider to be a major barbecue event that takes place every year, that being Memphis in May.
Mm-hmm.
This is a power play. So my thought is Smoke Slam is either looking to run Memphis in May right out of town or look to force them nicely, or maybe not so nicely, into a merge or partnership in some way going forward outside of this year. Possibility?
No, not at all.
Not at all.
We see ourselves as something completely different. We're here for the long term, like we said. We're also here to just bring a solid family fun event for the city of Memphis, for visitors, and to have a phenomenal barbecue experience for our teams. I mean, we've got the NBN, we've got World Foods. They've not been involved with the other festival.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say other because you've used it other about us. But no, I think there's room in the sandbox for both of us.
Was sanctioning key for you? Did you want to have this
for
first
me,
year event
yes.
sanctioned no matter what?
Yes.
Were you
Yes.
looking into
Great
other
to see
sanctioning bodies besides MBN?
Would you have the Texas Barbecue Association be doing Memphis barbecue event? I mean, really.
But what about EAT?
What?
Why not have EAT, or World Food Championships runs the EAT methodology? You could run their scoring system all the way through if you wanted, I suppose, as an option.
We could, but yes. But, what we worked with them on the ancillaries is such a major play for us. I've never attended an event. I have friends that are judges. I see all the pictures. I follow them. I think we're going to do an awesome job with our World Foods, but we wanted to bring it home with the Memphis Barbecue Network and their expertise and guidance, and just, highlight that. It's Memphis. It's barbecue.
Another conspiracy theory.
Tell me.
What about conversations that maybe for Momentum or Memphis Fest wanted to have with Memphis and Maine? Say, hey, guys, gals, you got this historic barbecue contest, but you're pissing it all away and you don't even realize it. If we can come together here, work together, we have all these great ideas. We can re-festivalize. I don't even think that's a word, but we can re-festivalize this and make it as great as it was, decades ago. Not saying it's not as great, but it's not. Let us help you. And that there was a rebuffing by Memphis and Maine. Said, no. We know what we want to do. This is the way we're going to do it. And you make your own contest if you think you can do better.
Now, I don't know about that conversation. I'll be honest with you. My area is, what I just don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been brought in as for a barbecue expert, not to sit in the boardroom and make those decisions or be a part of those conversations. And I am happy to be brought in and tickle pink about, just doing what I'm doing, and that's promoting barbecue in Memphis, and just every single day we say whatever we're going to do, whatever action we take has to result in a quality experience. And that's our focus.
Outside of Smoke Slam, and you mentioned it very briefly, you are part of Hogs for a Cause. What are you doing for them? And what do you like?
Yes. I have been their judging coordinator. It's really, can I tell you a quick story?
Please.
So I don't know how much you know about Hogs for the Cause, but it was a group of friends that got together to help one of their friends whose son was suffering from pediatric brain cancer. So they had a backyard fundraiser. Then they had a block party. And within a very short period of time, they were at City Park in New Orleans, and they had no formal approach. So one of my employees, because I'm in international logistics, so one of my employees was sitting between two of the founders, and they were going back and forth on the airplane stating, what do we do? What do we do? Finally, she pulled out a business card. She wrote my number on the back. She goes, y'all need help. They called me the next week. I went down to New Orleans, and the rest is history. I love those guys. We've got it down to a clockwork. It's what we raised, I think, and I had a bet and I won $5 million, right at $5 million. And it's one of those nonprofits that they work very hard, and they try so hard to give away so much money. And they're about to open up their second hog house in Baton Rouge. It's almost finished. So it's an awesome experience. It's Memphis Barbecue Network. I brought them in, and they run it as a non-sanctioned event. So it's really different in that we have some judges that are certified, but we want to keep that free spirit of, do I like it or not? So we actually have a lot of people that sign up to judge, that we teach them on the spot. So it's never a dull moment. Never a dull moment. And it's nothing for us to have 60-something hogs and 100 entries in all the rest of the categories. It's a busy 2 days.
The other organization you're involved with, Melissa Cookson, was just telling us about a couple months ago. I think we might have been, when she was on the last time, we might have been a week away from the final championship. Is it the World Junior Barbecue Association?
World Junior Barbecue League, yes. And it's focused on young people from 14 to 18 in high school or equivalent. And I tell you what, they laugh at me. Well, but I cry all the time when I see the impact just with meeting those kids the Friday at Cook's meeting, and then going all the way working with them through that following evening at awards. It touches your heart. It's a grand experience, and I'm very proud that Melissa thinks enough of me to have me a part of her organization on that.
This is Melzie Wilson. She's the organizer at SmokeSlam. The website smokeslam.com. If you want to check it out here, especially if you're getting it over podcast, you can't listen or you can't watch it while we're talking here. The event, May 16th through May 18th. And again, the website smokeslam.com. Melzie, appreciate the extended time here this evening. Look back on your background and then talking about SmokeSlam and its competitor, the other one over there at Liberty Park. And really looking forward to seeing how this is coming off. By the way, if there's any breaking news or anything you want to come on and share as we lead up to it, please reach out, and we'd love to have you back on.
We would love to. We've got so much coming our way that I'd love to ping you and just get a bite, just a sound bite, and share it with you.
All right. Melzie,
We're excited.
appreciate it.
We're
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
It's Melzie Wilson right there. Lot to unpack. We'll do that when we come back. Maybe also when we have a new show next week. We'll look at that. The clock's not too bad. So we will do this last piece of business and we'll come back and wrap the show. Smokeslam.com, the website. I believe social media is the same, SmokeSlam. So go ahead and check them out. As we get ready to close it out here, for those of you who share a passion, if you are a fellow passionado about the premium hand-rolled cigars, you know it's time for the Aladino Reed. Yes, JRE Tobacco. Makers of the Aladino line, the Corojo Reserve, Aladino Classic, Aladino Sumatra, just to name a few. I have I think Petite Corona in Aladino Classic. Wow, stupendous. 4x40. If you want a sample, I can send you some out my dime. No problem. I'll get you hooked. They're like 35 minutes. Again, full cigar experience, great flavor, nothing too harsh. I like to say Aladino is full flavor, but in that medium strength category, maybe at least for me. I mean, it could differ from person to person because we're all human, right? But if you want to try a classic, I got it in a smaller size. If you want a Corojo Reserva, I got some box-pressed Figurados, which require the most elite rollers to do. So email me, and I'll ship you some samples if you would care to. Greg at thebbqcentralshow.com. Just let me know if you would like to try some Aladinos, and I'll send them right out within that week that you send me the email. Here's the bottom line. Trying out different blends from the Aroa family. They own JRE Tobacco. It demonstrates our expertise in mastering hard-to-grow tobaccos, the varieties, blending them in a way that a smoking experience always second to none with them. Again, if you want a sample, email me. I'll send them your way. Otherwise, visit a retailer, jretobacco.com. Find a retailer near you. And if you already have a retailer but they don't carry JRE Tobacco products, tell them to do so. I can help you out. I can help facilitate that. We're back to wrap the show right after this. Stick around. I'll be right back.
Let's get back to a guy who has more experience giving you his opinion than he actually has cooking. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
All right, we are back. Getting ready to wrap it up. Drunken Honky weighing in. Well, Greg done it again. He asked the questions, and they are avoiding them. What? Sometimes people aren't in the room, Drunken Honky. We thank Melzie Wilson for joining us the last two segments. Smokeslam.com is the website. If you would like to check that out, if you're a team interested in competing, you can go out and fill all that application and all that stuff. And now we got a breakneck to get out. See if we can hit the clock. All the way back in the first hour, Meathead joined us, AmazingRibs.com. Then it was Robert Moss, talking about lesser-known cuts from the past, robertfmoss.com. And then for the last two segments, it was Melzie Wilson, organizer at SmokeSlam. Smokeslam.com is the website. Big show planned for you next week. Third Tuesday of the month, Steve Ray, former embedded correspondent from Tennessee, is coming back with an HBBA recap. Then we have Wes Wright, and we have other things going on in the second hour that I can't remember. So, how do I always leave? September 11, 2001. I will never forget. Happy birthday, 21st, Maddie Rempe. And until next Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, this is your program host and proud U.S. American, Greg Rempe. Good night now.
Hi, this is Frisky Dog, the barbecue wizard, and you're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Bye-bye!